What if I told you the most prolific killer of the 20th century didn't carry a knife or a gun? It didn't stalk victims in the night. It just sat there. In the walls, in the fuel, in the water. Not Gacy, not Bundy, not even Dahmer. No, this killer was a quiet one. And while no one was watching, it slipped into our bloodstreams, rewired our brains, and may have helped create an entire generation of violent criminals. A while back, I made a video called "Where Did All the Serial Killers Go?" And in that video, I asked the same question you might have asked yourself at like 2 a.m. after a true crime binge. Why don't we seem to have any household name serial killers anymore? And people had a lot of theories down in the comments. I mean, look, over 500 comments. You know, some blamed the internet, some said better police work, surveillance, DNA. One guy said it was astrology. Not even joking. He had like this whole chart with stars and shit. But one idea kept showing up over and over and over again. Lead. What if America's so-called golden age of serial killers, the 70s and 80s, wasn't just some weird cultural blip? What if Bundy, Gacy, and Ramirez and company were products of something in the air? Literally. Well, that's the theory. That lead poisoning, especially during early childhood, played a significant role in shaping the violence of the 1970s and 1980s. That it didn't just poison a generation, it rewired their brains. It didn't just make them sick, it made them violent. Really quick before I go any further, welcome to Breakfast Cereal. My name's Josh. If you're new here, welcome. I'm just a guy with a lot of questions. Sometimes pretty weird, dark questions. You've probably got some too. That's why you're here. That's what this series is all about. It's also about the conversation down in the comments. I want to hear from all of you, so make sure you get in there. And hey, don't forget to subscribe if you like this video. I grew up like a lot of people in the 90s, raised on shows like American Justice, Cold Case Files, and America's Most Wanted. It felt like America was producing a new monster every 6 months. The Zodiac, the Night Stalker, BTK. These guys weren't just dangerous, they were characters. And for a long time, we just explained it away. Broken homes, abusive parents, repressed sexuality, pornography, Viet-fucking-Nam.
Viet-fucking-Nam!
Every decade had its favorite scapegoat. But none of those explanations ever felt like enough. They explain the individuals, sure, but not the pattern. Because all those factors I just mentioned, abusive parents, repressed sexuality, war, porn, all of those still exist today. So as I asked before, where'd all the serial killers go? Well, that's where the lead crime hypothesis comes in. In its simplest form, it says this: the more lead you pump into the environment, the more violent crime you'll eventually get. Why? Well, because lead is a neurotoxin, and not just any neurotoxin, one that's especially dangerous to developing brains. When kids are exposed to lead, even in small doses, it alters the way their brains grow. It lowers IQ. It impairs impulse control. It increases aggression. It damages the part of the brain responsible for empathy. Basically, it makes you dumber, angrier, and less able to care about other people. Essentially, that's the recipe for a serial killer, right? Henry Lee Lucas must have eaten lead. Anyway, take that cocktail and drop it into a country already dealing with poverty, racism, mental illness, and generational trauma, and you got yourself there is a powder keg. Okay, so let's talk numbers for a second, because I know you guys love it so much when I pull out the charts and shit. Okay, so in the United States, leaded gasoline was introduced in the 1920s. By the 1950s and 60s, it was everywhere. The air in major cities was basically a fog of microscopic poison. Kids were playing outside, riding their bikes, breathing this in day after day. Studies later found that blood levels in American children were 5 times higher in the 1960s than they are today. Okay, but here is where it gets freaky. A researcher named Rick Nevin mapped lead exposure levels onto violent crime rates. And look at this chart. A perfect 20-year lag. Lead exposure goes up in 1950, crime spikes in 1970. Lead goes down in 1980, crime drops in 2000. Over and over again, across multiple countries, same pattern, same 20-year lag. Coincidence? Well, let's have a look at the birth years of some of our most notorious serial killers. John Wayne Gacy, born 1942. Dennis Rader, BTK, 1945. Ted Bundy, 1946. Ed Kemper, 1948. Gary Ridgway, 1949. David Berkowitz, 53. Richard Ramirez, 1960. And Jeff Dahmer, 1960. I mean, that's a pretty good list of notoriety. All born between 1940 and 1960, the peak of environmental lead exposure. And if you think for a second, just think about the neighborhoods that these guys grew up in. Urban, poor, industrial. Ramirez grew up near chemical plants in El Paso. Berkowitz lived in a crumbling Bronx apartment with peeling paint and old plumbing. Kemper's mom moved him around constantly from one shitty rental apartment to the next. These places weren't just emotionally toxic, they were literally toxic. So why did they stop?
3, 2, 1, happy 2000!
By the 2000s, that wave of serial killers faded. I mean, you can go watch my other video on that for more, but I mean, here's the main graph from that video. Sure, we still have killers, mass shootings, terrorism, but the Bundy type serial killer, the Gacy-esque predator, gone. At least pretty much anyway. Oh, well, what about the Long Island serial killer? That case is happening right now. Yeah, I can hear you asking that, and I can see people pointing that out in the comments. Well, let's look at the suspect. This guy, Rex Heuermann, born 1963, right smack in the middle of our lead peak timeline. So, see? Okay, so back to what I was saying. If the Dahmer or Gacy-esque serial killer is a thing of the past, what's changed? Okay, so maybe it was DNA evidence, surveillance cameras, better law enforcement and forensics. Maybe people are getting caught just after the first murder, before they can even become serial killers. Who knows? Maybe it was the fucking stars. But maybe it's because we removed the lead. We stopped poisoning kids' brains, and 20 years later, violent crime plummeted. And look, I know what you're thinking. Plenty of people grew up with lead and didn't turn into monsters. And yeah, that's true. Just like every kid who gets hit doesn't turn into a bully.
Go get it!
But we're not talking about guarantees. I'm talking about risk, tipping points. And when someone's brain is already compromised, when they're already struggling with abuse, neglect, genetics, maybe lead was the extra weight that tipped the scale. Humans are complicated. Violence doesn't come from one source, and there's certainly no chemical formula for evil. But still, no other theory explains the timing this well. And of course, I'm not saying Bundy or Gacy or Dahmer were victims, but maybe, just maybe, they were broken before they even had the chance to become something else. Maybe their brains were wired for destruction before they ever learned right from wrong. Lead didn't make them monsters, but it might have made it easier to ignore the part of themselves that wasn't. So what do you think? Have you heard of this lead crime hypothesis before? I know a lot of you have. Am I missing something? Or am I bang on? Does it change how you see these guys, even a little? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I'll be down there with you.